Let's go over to the Flagstaff House now and see what's happening there.
When Parliament has agreed to resume. For planning. I think everybody, all of us within the political space are now agreed that we have to take the issue of the planning of the development of our economy seriously. And that is why a lot of support has been given to the National Development Planning Commission, which has come out, as you know, with a 40-year program for national development and set out in broad terms what the targets are. But there's an issue, and the issue is the government that is elected at a given time has to be able to factor its priorities and its development agenda within the overall context of that broad national plan. And discussions that I've already had with members of the Planning Commission indicate that for them and for me, it would be useful to have a point of reference in the administration for this process of reconciling the agenda of the NPP and the mandate that we have in our manifesto within the broad framework of the development plan. And in order to do so, to look around, and I found somebody who's ideally suited, who in fact used to run the development planning, the NDPC. He is a very respected economist, was deputy minister for the finance in President Kufuor's time, has, as I said, been Director General of the National Development Planning Commission, and is one of the renowned economists in our country. I believe that he's ideally suited for this task of translating the NPP manifesto and the NPP priorities within the broad framework of the National Development Plan. So he's going to be the person who will be a minister in the office of the president who is going to be responsible for this task. It's an important task because if we are agreed on the broad principles of national development, we also have to factor into it the mandate that a given government gets at any one time. And that is the work that Professor Jambafo, MP for Wechi, Buzia's seat, historic seat in Ghanaian politics, that is the role that he's going to play. And he's the person whose name I'll be submitting to the Parliament when it resumes on the 24th of January. Professor. Thank you. The next nominee on the list is one of the dynamic women in our party. She's a well-known figure, very eloquent, with a great deal of charisma and personality. We want her to spearhead an area of our national life that, in my view, we have not taken sufficiently seriously, but which provides tremendous opportunities for job creation and for big revenues to our national accounts, to develop a really solid infrastructure for the tourist industry in our country. If it succeeds, it will be one of the transformational elements in the overall process of national transformation. I think for that to happen, you need somebody who is going to approach the job single-mindedly and who will have the personality to be able to appeal and talk to the stakeholders in this very complex industry. In our party, so many talents, But I think a lot of people will agree with me that Catherine Ifeku is somebody who can do such a job very well. So she's the person that I'm nominating to the House. She's currently the MP for Evaluate Ajumoro Jura. Then they sent her away, but she's fought her way back. That's her. Very, very tenacious. And she's back again in the House as the minister, as the member of Parliament for that. I believe that she has the qualities that will make her a fine minister for tourism, arts and culture. There are people probably wondering what has happened to him because he's been so prominent in my life these last 10 years, and suddenly his name has gone silent. It's because today is his day. I think you're all very familiar with him. He currently is a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast in Islamic Studies. He's been a long-serving activist and servant of the NPP. In my spokesperson, anybody better placed to act as Minister of Information and continue to act as my spokesperson. He's the Minister for Information and the spokesperson for the President. So that authority that he's had as spokesperson is going to continue, even though now he's a minister. The media, I want you to give him maximum support. Maximum support is not to say that we are beyond criticism. No, that's not the way I want it. But at least to treat him with respect and give full regard to whatever he has to say on my behalf and on the behalf of the government, i.e. give him the benefit of the doubt whenever there's any issue. Mustafa Abdul Hamid is the Minister for Information. Thank you. One of the major commitments that we made in the campaign and in our manifesto was that we were going to restructure the capital budget of our country so that we could get money directly to the constituencies to deal with issues of infrastructure and the particular needs of constituencies. I continue to bemoan the state of sanitation in many parts of our country. This money, the 1 million per constituency, is being set aside for dealing with such issues. But when you look at it on a national scale, it's a lot of money. We're talking on an annual basis of the equivalent of $275 million. We're also saying that the authorities that we intend to set up, the development authorities, the Coastal Development Authority, the Middle Belt Development Authority, and the Northern Development Authority are going to be the vehicles for dispersing this money. There has to be accountability. We cannot afford a repetition of what happened over Sada. That is not going to happen in Akufo-Addo's time, believe you me. And in order to make sure that there is an accountable figure for whom Parliament, myself, and the general public can look to as to how these monies have been spent, to ensure that they have been spent in an intelligent and concerted manner. We need a minister who will be held out as the minister. We are having to create this portfolio of Minister for Special Development Initiatives. And I've chosen a young lady who's had a lot of experience already. He's not had ministerial experience so far, but the constituency that she holds has been a very difficult one. She's had to really struggle twice to become member of parliament. She's shown a lot of tenacity and perseverance. And at the same time, she has developed a reputation for being somebody outspoken and also independent of mind and honest. I think such a person is what we need to make sure that these special development initiatives stay on track, and that at any one stage, the Ghanaian people are satisfied that there was due accountability for the way these monies are going to be spent. So Howard Kumson is the Member of Parliament for Ewutu Senya East, I'm not quite sure, and she's the name that I have sent to Parliament for approval as Minister for the Special Development Initiatives. For several years now, our ranking member for youth and sports has been Isaac Kwame Asiama, somebody who's well known in the various controversies that have arisen over the administration of sports. He's now going to have an opportunity to actually act in the area with some authority, not just be a critic. He's well known to the sporting hierarchy of our country. He's well known to the media. He was the youngest MP one stage when he first came into the parliament, and has been successful in retaining his seat, I think now the third time. Fourth, look, I'm underestimating. And apart from sports committees, been members of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, the Finance Committee, the Poverty Reduction Committee, Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. So we have somebody with a broad experience. The need for us and set Ghanaians on a really firm footing, I think is something that all of us in Ghana would agree with. We have a tremendous heritage in this area, and it is time that that heritage spoke in this generation. Whether it is football or boxing or athletics or table tennis, we have a very proud heritage as a sporting nation. And I think that the experience, the exposure, the energy and the dynamism that Isaac Asiama has is the right mixture for us to be able to say, yes, hopefully now we are going to have a new age in the development of sports in our country, especially in making the connection between the official sporting hierarchies and the schools, which traditionally ought to be the sources for generating the outstanding sports people in our country. That connection, I believe that Isaac Asiama is going to be able to make. So he's the name that I'm sending to Parliament for approval as Minister for Youth and Sports. With industry, Yes, you. She seems a bit surprised. An industry that affects the lives of some 2 million people in Ghana is the fisheries industry. And I do not have to underline or overemphasize its importance its importance in the economy of our country. There are important matters that are now confronting all of us. The depletion of our marine stocks, methods of fishing which go against the grain, the apparent decline in artisanal fishing. All these are very important issues, not only for the communities involved in fishing, but for the nation at large. The protein and other things that we get out of fish tells you how important it is. The young woman, it's her first time in Parliament, and therefore it would seem as if it's a dramatic, if you like, progress. That is the first-time member of Parliament. She's going to be a minister. But her background, 20 years in the Ministry of Agriculture, where in fact this was her schedule. It was her schedule as a civil servant. But I believe her exposure, her knowledge of the issues in the industry are second to none in our country. When you speak to her, you will know it. And very soon, the world will know it in the way that she conducts herself in the ministry. She comes from a fishing community. She is a member of Parliament for a fishing community. And I think she's very, very ideally positioned to be able to be an advocate for that community, for that industry, as well as a policy maker to make sure that the decline that we have seen in the incomes of fisher folk, that decline is arrested and is reversed to upward, and that also the fundamental issues, the methods of fishing, the depletion of our marine stocks, that those become a thing of the past, and that we look forward to a new era where our oceans are once again fruitful and well managed and well kept. It's a huge responsibility, but everything about her fighting spirit, going to become MP for Krowa is not a simple matter, especially if you're an MPP person. But she has been able to overcome these and is today Member of Parliament for Krowa and the person that I've nominated to Parliament for its approval to be the Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture, now fully equipped. The next person that I'm introducing is a person who's already Kofi. Somebody who already has broad experience of government. He's been a long-standing activist of our party. He's in fact a National Council member, and he was the former regional minister in the Volta region during President Kufuor's time. Recently, he has been the campaign sector committee chair on chieftaincy and religious affairs. He's acquitted himself well, in my view, in that position during the campaign and in the discussions internally that we have had. And I believe that he'll make an effective minister in this area. It's a difficult area. We now have to find a way of integrating the institution of chieftaincy in local government in a more secure manner, especially since from next year onwards, hopefully, we're now going to have fully elected district assembly officers and executives. How are we going to position the chieftaincy institution in local government in the new democratic dispensation that we're going to see in local government? There are big issues, and there are matters that require somebody with experience and a certain durability of character. At the same time, the major religions in our country fall also within his purview. And all of us know, to some extent, how turbulent that can also be. But I believe we have somebody who is going to be a strong and steady hand in piloting the chieftaincy in this new era that is ahead of us in our country. And he is the member of our party we call Kofi Jamesi. And he's the one that I'm sending to Parliament for approval for Minister of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. We want to make Ghana a hub in West Africa in the airline industry. We have every opportunity to do so. Kotoka is already one of the most, if not the most, patronized airports in West Africa. But there are policy and structural reforms that we have to make to the way we're handling that industry if indeed we're going to succeed in making it the hub in West Africa for all of this large business that the international airlines do. I think for that we need a dedicated person within the government whose brief it will be to work on making Accra, Ghana, and the various airports that we are now developing the airports of choice for the international community for their activities. She has been minister, President Kufuor's time. She has been a senior figure of our party. She continues to be very active in the work of our party. In the Parliament, she has served on several committees. So you're now again dealing with somebody, you know, in the prime of her life, who has a very broad experience of governance. And I believe will be effective in delivering the goal that we're setting for her. That is Cecilia Dapa, which is the Minister for Aviation. One of the critical areas of concern for the social cohesion and harmony of our country is the developments that are taking place in our inner cities and in our zongos. It was to meet the challenge of social development in zongos that we committed ourselves to establishing a Zongo Development Fund and also committed ourselves to making a special effort to develop our inner cities. Again, it's my view that if we're to succeed, not only in delivering on the promises of our manifesto, but more importantly, in the reasons for the promises of the manifesto, the development of our inner cities and our zongos, that they don't become areas of despair, areas of difficulty, areas of social conflict. The development that has to take place has to be coordinated, has to fit in with the overall national economic plan and promotion that we are engaged in. And I don't think that around me I can think of a more appropriate person. He's already the darling of the Zongos. Everybody knows that in Ghana. He's won a big election there. People thought it was impossible, but he did it. And his standing in the communities in which he's going to be working are very, very high. I think that if anybody can deliver on our commitments to the Zongo people and help in the upliftment of the life of our inner cities, it is Boniface Sadiq, now the MP for Medina and the Minister for the Inner City and Zongo Development. Boniface. The last but one name that I'm proposing for nomination as minister is somebody who is relatively new, not to public life, but to political life. He was a very successful managing director of the Daily Graphic Corporation, an extremely successful businessman, very wide exposure in the private sector of our country, has a tremendous record in initiating investments and in promoting businesses. The development of business is a central feature of the work we want to do, because we believe that a vibrant business community in Ghana, a thriving Ghanaian business community, is the tool that will bring about the transformation and development of our country. So I've chosen a man who was, as I said, former managing director of graphic communications. He's the chief executive of many important companies right now. And I think that the personality as well as the insight and the experience of Ibrahim Awal Mohammed for business development make him a really, really pregnant choice for what we want to do. So you're welcome to the world of politics. But I believe you will not find it difficult to succeed as a minister. Thank you so much. Last but not the least, and I say last but not the least, is that all the other nominees, if they get on his wrong side, will not get the approval of Parliament. So even though he's the last name I'm bringing, he is perhaps the most formidable of all the nominees, because it is he who has the numbers at his fingertips when it comes to the approval or not. I've decided, I know that the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs went into disuse, but I believe that the link that it provides between the executive and Parliament is an important link. And this Parliament is going to be undertaking important structural reforms, not only of itself and the work it is doing, but of the national constitution and the governance structure of our country. And therefore, the need for us to have that link and that authority that the majority leader should have, I think has become paramount. And that is why I've gone against the wisdom of recent years and have decided to reinstate the portfolio of Minister for Parliamentary Affairs. And of course, the person who's occupying the position of majority leader and who has now become a sort of an institution in himself in the Parliament of Ghana is the obvious person and the obvious candidate to be Minister for Parliamentary Affairs. So I'm introducing to the House, I think you'll have to approve yourself in the House. Mr. Honorable Oseche Mensah-Bosu, Member for Swane, as the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs and Majority Leader. Yes, sir. Thank you. In conclusion, as I indicated, we now have to send up to the House the names of the regional ministers. Then we will say that the first level of the government will have been properly constituted. Those names will be aired to you next week. When the ministers are in place, as the Constitution requires, I have to consult with them to determine who will be the deputy ministers. It's possible that a lot of that consultation will be going on now. The process will not take place and conclude until the ministers are in place. We have to respect our Constitution, and that's what the National Constitution says. But I think there's also one matter that I would like to have cleared up. There's 6 portfolios that are coming out as new portfolios. But all these 6 portfolios will be working under the umbrella or under the aegis of the Office of the President. They are not new, they're not stand-up ministries that are going to be established. They are all going to function as part of the Office of the President. But the ministers involved will have their dedicated portfolios, and they'll find their being within the budget of the Office of the President. Monitoring and evaluation that Dr. Akufo said that I spoke to you earlier about, the regional reorganization and development that the Honorable Dangote, the planning minister that I've outdoor, special development initiatives, the business development, and the inner city and Zongo development. These are the portfolios with specific tasks, specific remits, but who are going to be part of the Office of the President and will partake of the budget of the Office of the President. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the first round of our work. As I say, next week, I may call you to indicate to you the men and women who have chosen to be regional ministers. And then we'll complete the process when the ministers have been approved. And I'm hoping that the caliber of people that we have put before the House is such that the Parliament will not have any difficulty in approving my nominees. I'm not anticipating that there should be any long-winded process. Many of them are already well-known figures in our national life. They are men and women of integrity. They have passed several tests of public scrutiny. And I'm expecting that the House will act expeditiously so that I can have a government and begin delivering on the promises and the commitments that we have made to the Ghanaian people. Our economy is in difficulties, and it is therefore the time for all of us to put our shoulders to the wheel, work hard, and have the appropriate policies in place that will be able for us to lift up our economies and bring relief to our population. The Ghanaian population should not be in the position they are now. Our country has a lot of resources. The proper management of those resources under the correct policies should be able to generate prosperity for our people. And but to do that, I can't do it by myself. I need all these people that I have submitted their names to Parliament for. I'm asking the Parliament, Mr. Minister for Parliamentary Affairs designate, yes, that you will help us expedite the process that will get us a government in place so we can get it. Our government has come to deliver on the commitments it has made to the Ghanaian people. We believe that these men and women are exactly the caliber of people who can help us deliver and bring prosperity to our country. I'm grateful to you, as always, for coming to participate in this and for the manner in which you're keeping our people informed of what we're doing here at the Akufo-Addo presidency. Thank you very much indeed, and may God bless you. Thank you. Huh? Yes, we'll have a group photograph. Yeah.
That is a live view from the Flagstaff House, where President Akufo-Addo has just finished naming his last set of ministers or ministers designated. Of course, he's saying that this is the end of the first round. So what we should expect, obviously, is that there will be a second round, perhaps an even third round. But he says he's asking Parliament to act expeditiously so he can have a working government. And of course, he acknowledges the media. I'm going to go through the names quickly once again, and just so you refresh your memory. So we've got Professor Jan Bafo, who is Minister Designate for Planning, Catherine Afeku, who is Minister Designate for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Mustafa Hamid, who is Minister Designate for Information, and then Mavis Kumsin, Minister Designate for Special Development Initiatives, and then we've got Isaac Esiama, Minister Designate for Youth and Sports, and Na Afole Kwe, Minister Designate for Fisheries and Aquaculture. Kofi Jamesi, Minister Designate for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. Cecilia Dapa, Minister Designate for Aviation. Boniface Sadiq, Alhaji Boniface Sadiq, Minister Designate for Inner City and Zongo Development. Ibrahim Awal, Minister Designate for Business Development. And Oseiche Mensa Bonsu, who is Member of Parliament for Swami, going for Parliamentary Affairs, Minister Designate for Parliamentary Affairs. The President says that by next week we should have a list of regional ministers, and of course he's going to consult with the ministers designates that he's chosen right now to choose who their deputies will be. Actually, he also touches on the 6 new portfolios, the 6 new, as a lot of debate has come on it, the 6 new ministries that he has mentioned, to say that these are not going to be independent ministries, that so that you have a whole office of them for that particular ministry, but you're going to have them under the umbrella of the office of the president. Although these ministers are going to have their own dedicated portfolios, their own budgetary allocations, etc., from, of course, the office of the president. These are not, they're not going to create or build new, if you so to speak, look for new offices for them. They're going to be stationed with the Ministry of at the office of the president. We'll probably touch on this list, this new list, and do a little bit of analysis on that. Whilst we wait for that, though, the president also, we know that, I mean, throughout this week, he has been naming the people that he intends to work with.